Next and last speaker is Mr. Ahmed Atef, also from Egypt. So I don't need to introduce him anymore. So please, you have the floor.
Now, as a film director, I have to present the movie time. Then to ease a little bit the dialogue and to make people refresh before lunch, maybe. So I think our victory is something exceptional on history, not only on the history of 20th century, but we can call it an exception on the human history, not in exaggerating way, but the cause of this is the nature of Egyptian people. The Egyptian people is very connected to civilization from decades and from centuries. And they have created the art of living and to being connected to life. If you start to focus and to see, to analyze what the core of the pharaonic civilization, and the word had played a big role on the development of pharaonic civilization from very old time. The word, the single word. And I think the Egyptian revolution, we can consider it a victory of a power against another, which a power of the people against a power of the regime, but also is a victory of an idea on another. That's why, for me, one of the most important things in this political transition or Egypt's transition is the protection of the movements of ideas. Even the so-called bad ideas or the extremist ideas, how to protect this movement, because everyone of fear of these upcoming ideas who have been buried along years. Some of these radical Islam representatives have been tortured or have been underground and represent maybe a huge risk for international peace. So how to make this idea, even its extremist, peaceful? How to put it on a way that it is idea, not idea connected with violence? Because from 2 months we are monitoring some violent act made by these small groups of, some minor violence acts made by these small groups of radical Islam connected to their ideas, to prove their ideas, to enforce their ideas. Then our challenge is the old regime have been very malicious and very hard in the oppression of ideas, on the deformation of ideas, of giving the impression that he's free and he let people talk. But actually, he have a censorship in cinema, for example. He have a lot of control on the press related to the money, because we have a public media and we have private sector media. Private sector media is run by businessmen, and businessmen are fed and supported on the past by the regime. Then it was very easy that a little officer from the police security called a big businessman over his personal phone, and someone like Najib Sawiris, he have the own TV channel, states this in an interview and say that any small officer from the police security called him and say, oh, you have to interview this and stop that. And in cinema, if you can, like me, like a filmmaker, you can make a film freely because of the digital revolution, not very expensive, by international fund, like my last film I made called Al Ghaba. I even present the torture of police in the film. They make a very hard limitation of the distribution of the film. They didn't let you present your film on movie theater by pressure on distribution company, not letting the film go to the public television. You can sell it to private Gulf TVs. And then this regime of oppression of idea, but giving the impression that you are free. There is some actors like Adil Imam or others give the impression that they talk freely, But in the matter of fact, if you focus, the only thing that they present is a critical of radical Islam. Of course, radical Islam and any other thing could be discussed and criticized, but not in a propaganda way, in a way that you can absorb even. I live in America, and I study in California, and I was French speaking on my school primary, and then in America, I have been noticed that in the USA you can find any extremist idea that you can encounter in your life, a huge amount of people with very nice and very strange ideas, but which makes the American society run that the respect of the law. You can state your idea without enforcement of anybody on it or without using a violence on it. So this is our role, and there is a long history. I think the role of Europe on promoting the dialogue of idea and the idea of dialogue is a part of the Western civilization, European civilization, and also connected to the different old Egyptian civilization. And that is the need now to promote this education for dialogue, and also to promote the dialogue in Egypt. One of the things that I blame even politicians and activists is the lack of making public conferences in governorate, in small villages, connected, because the TV have an impact, but it's not we can talk over the phone, you can eat, but the human contact, like we are here, is more efficient and more beneficial. And we need to contact the people directly. And also the role to finalize, don't be worried, Mr. Ambassador, to finalize is, I want to focus on the role of cinema as an art on this transition, because the cinema is something emotional. And the use of emotion, not of the cold ideas. Even in America, after Second World War II, they make a propaganda wave of films called Marshall Plan films. The Marshall Plan films was to promote democracy. The film produced by this wave is not like very artistic or efficient, but we can use cinema not in a propagandic way, but we can use it to promote the great human value, like the openness and the accept of the other, and the spirit of dialogue, and all these measures are there. Thanks for all. I wish it is movie time for you.
Well, thank you very much. As we know, revolutions are always ahead of time and conferences are always behind time. So are we. But I think we still have a few more minutes for questions or comments. I just would like to ask to keep your questions and comments somewhat shorter than the contributions from the panel. So 30 seconds, please, ma'am.
Siam Ben Zedrin from Tunis. You told us you will explain to us your own experience from Central Europe and Eastern Europe on how you did your transitional experience. But we didn't heard anything about this issue. And I'm asking you how you dealt with police, how you dealt with judiciary, how you dealt with media, how you dealt with all main issue we need to know about in order to know what are your success story and where are your failure, in order not to repeat these kind of mistakes. In Tunisia right now, we have the very, very crucial period to cross. We have revolutionary people pushing forward, and we have a big body of conservative forces pushing forward, and they are still powerful. They are still ruling a lot of administration in the state, in the economy, and so on. And our question is how you are doing in order to also learn from your experience. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, please.
My name is George Ishaq. I am the founder of Kifaya Movement. أنا عايز بس أقول للأخ ألكسندر إنه قال على ثورة عبد الناصر انقلاب، وهذا خطأ.
This was a pure revolution, pure and simple. There was experience in Eastern Germany. We were deeply suffering by what the security bodies in the country were doing. They were tapping our phones, they were monitoring, they were placing political activists under surveillance. How did you cope with this problem? This is important for us to know.
I'm from Iraq, and I thought I could bring some experiences to bear because Iraq started a transition in 2003, and 8 years later we have had several elections, most of them free and fair, but we are far from establishing a cohesive democracy and stability. And I'd like to point out some issues, actually 3 issues, which are part of the same nexus that have impeded the progress of democratization in Iraq. And they all have to do with dealing with the past. One element of that is the question of justice versus retribution. Is it going to be justice, or is it going to be revenge and retribution? The next one is the issue of individual responsibility and due process, or collective punishment. And the third one is the issue of victor and vanquished versus the concept of national reconciliation. And I bring this up because, first of all, it was mentioned in the keynote remarks, but also it was mentioned even now by the last gentleman speaker who spoke about the police forces. In Iraq, rather than choosing justice rather than retribution, rather than choosing individual responsibility and chose instead collective punishment, instead of working on reconciliation, we worked on the concept of a victor and vanquished. We had 8 years and continuing of internal strife, which at times reached to the level of civil war. We have not resolved these issues of how to deal with the past. And I would urge countries like Tunisia, Egypt, hopefully also other countries, to keep those concepts very much, that dichotomy, that binary relationship, very much in focus as you go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The gentleman there will be the last, because